And welcome to the Creative Cow Show. Today, we are joined by Ed Harper and Kevin Usher, who are here to tell us all about the latest update to the Avid VFS and F-Series storage. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Bree, it's good to meet you too. Thank you very much. This is an announcement we are making on July 12th. We've got a little bit of background of, what the context is, market trends. So, the demand for content is ever upwards, 4K, 8K, HDR. Everybody wants better visual quality, wants better content quality. That's been going on for many years, just continues. A lot of the over-the-top service providers were streaming their content in 4K, have plans to go higher than that. Challenges within the industry in the last couple of years, it was certainly growing before the pandemic, but obviously 2 years ago everybody went home in a real sudden environment, and as much as people are coming back, there's a lot of people want to work in a hybrid sense. They want to be able to work when and where they can. The workday isn't sort of a 9 to 5 thing anymore, so those are certainly dynamics we need to cater for. And a lot of people want to embrace the cloud. For a while there was sort of a reticence of, does the cloud help me? Is it secure? Should I do it? People are starting to understand it's a great place to be able to consolidate the media, to be able to have that media in one place, give access to it. And arguably the cloud providers have, an army of people doing security, whereas smaller production companies, broadcasters, or whoever just don't have that size of a team or even the depth of talent. So the security in the cloud certainly fits. So these are some of the drivers of the industry and storage, and being able to embrace either a cloud deployment or even a full as a service in the cloud. To get more specific on the media storage needs, there is the demand for consolidation of media, because there's a lot of different media storage around everybody's environment, and having lots of different pools of storage is just complex. It's costly. It's not very reliable. Subscription, having new business models is a driver actually from both sides. Most customers in most media production companies are doing some form of streaming. They're doing that as a direct to the consumer. So they're embracing a subscription model. As those services grow and as that cost basis, that revenue stream builds, our customers are looking to us as sort of, I don't want to have to make this huge purchase every 5 or 6 years. Rather, they'd prefer to be able to pay as they go along. A subscription model is one of those demands also. So a big need, touched on it a little bit before, is cloud and virtualization. So being able to make assets available to those who are authorized in the cloud, not just putting it there for everybody, of course, but that's one of the techniques to be able to let people work from anywhere. But also, for anybody who has more than one location, rather than having lots of different copies in all those different locations, which not only costs money, but also adds the complexity of, okay, where's the actual master copy, or where's the piece that we're really working on? You get out of sync with those revisions by being able to put it in one place that everybody has access to. Inherently, you're all working on the most recent copy. So there's definite benefits to the workflow and the user base. So to drive that, you need an intelligent infrastructure. Storage, as you'll see actually on the next slide, we've been in the storage industry for many, many years, and even started the whole collaboration thing for media workflows. But it's progressed that the intelligence really is in the storage, by being able to have that collaboration and really enhance that. So we've taken that to a whole new level. And I sort of touched on it earlier, the media assets being available to anyone and accessible where it's authorized is a very important thing. So a little bit of the storage heritage. Hopefully people know this, that Avid has been in the storage industry for media, and we don't do anything else. At times people say, well, why don't we take this storage and do other industries? Our focus is unashamedly the media industry. We started the whole collaboration thing with Avid Unity back in 1999. We raised the bar in 2005 with Avid NEXIS. So really took that to a much higher scale, did a lot more collaboration to allow a lot more users to be able to access one shared storage at the same time. We raised the bar again in 2016 with the first iteration of Nexus. So a lot more redundant, higher performance, much more flexible. We enabled that in the cloud in 2018, and we'll get into it in a little bit. The new announcement that we're making now, certainly builds on all of that. So the things that we're announcing for 2022 is increased flexibility, increased deployment flexibility. So as I said, we have been able to do it in the cloud, but we are enhancing that. We're enhancing the purchasing flexibility, so you still will be able to buy it as the big sort of CapEx, the capital expenditure kind of purchase, but also as a subscription. And that is has a lot of leverage, that it will be able to investment protect and be able to move the subscription to the cloud whenever customers are ready, because some customers know that they may well need to be in the cloud in a few years, but they're not quite ready. And so some customers are reluctant to do a big hardware-based purchase now and then, wondering how that migrates. So the subscription actually unlocks that and makes it a lot more flexible. We're increasing the collaboration, which has been a key and a core to what we've been doing the whole way along. And we've enhanced the connectivity options. We're embracing the full Ethernet 25, 50, 100 gig architecture. So there's a lot of pieces along that path. So the announcement more specifically is around the Nexus, and we're calling it the F-Series. So in the past, we had the E-Series and the Nexus Pro. So we're evolving that with updated hardware infrastructure to make it faster. As I mentioned, better connectivity. We're also rebranding the Nexus file system and call it the VFS. And this really sort of adds the focus to the file system, which, as I've said, and indeed for many years has been the true advantage of Nexus and the real power of Nexus. People sort of look at the hardware because you can see it, you can touch it, you have to go bolt it in the rack, but the intelligence and the actual real benefits of Nexus is within the VFS. And one of the things, we've got a patented technique which allows many users to be able to access the same storage in the same workspaces, the actual same projects, the same media clips, and have a number of different users, either from a handful all the way up to 300 users accessing the same media at the same time, but everybody gets really good playback performance. You hit the space bar, it starts playing instantly, that sort of stuff. And that's built on a technique that's very much heart of the VFS file system. So there's certainly a big new piece about the hardware. There's new life in the software. We've added enhancements there. And as I sort of touched on it, we are enabling all of that to be purchased as a subscription, which is what we're calling the Avid NEXIS FLEX. So that is, as I probably mentioned, you subscribe an annual subscription to the software with that portability to be able to move it to the cloud when you need to. So quick touch through the hardware. As I mentioned, Nexus has been around for 5 or 6, going on 7 years. Sounds quite a long time in the technology world. So it was time to do a little bit of a refresh from the hardware point of view. What that got us was high performance, better connectivity, and we're leveraging that to be able to increase the scale. So the scale is more files. So, and that plays in a lot of different workflows, but higher file counts for VFX, audio workflows, or just more files. And if you're doing a frame per file sort of format, that's very important. So a lot of expansion there. And then we've changed the way we expand the different engines, and it's actually a bit more clear on the next slide. So just to touch very briefly on the naming, we call it the F-Series. So because it's faster, it's more flexible, it has the Flex subscription, and it's familiar. So it is, an evolution to the E-Series. And obviously, logically, E is the F comes after E, but also, it ties in very much with the things that we're talking about, the faster, the flexibility, that sort of stuff. So a quick overview of the product line. The main piece is the tier 1, the online, this is where everybody's storing their assets while they're editing. So the smaller environments are Nexus Pro today and the Pro Plus in the future, and then the F2, the F2X, and the F5. So they're different storage engines, really just more and more drives, so higher and higher density. What we've done this time is that you can take an F2, which is the smaller but highly redundant engine, and if you want to expand it, you connect an F2X. So in the past, we sold an E4 that was 2 media packs, 20 media drives. So we can fully replace that. It's 100% compatible. An F2 and an F2X, is 100% compatible with the existing E4, so people can expand. And similarly, the other engines are fully compatible with their predecessors. We took a lot of time to make sure that everything was fully compatible. So that's the main online tier. The F2S SSD is a full all-flash array that's coming later in the year. And then we have, and we're continuing with the nearline products, which will now be the F5NL. So super dense, more than a petabyte of storage in one engine. And the SDA is the system director appliance, which has been evolved with a lot more files, so about triple the file count that we used to have in the past for those reasons I mentioned. So a quick slide on the VFS itself, the file system. It's a lot of different pieces. It's, the virtualization of the storage. There's a lot of security. We set up workspaces. We have users and groups of, who has access to which workspaces. It's definitely extensible architecture. There's things like the due times that I was talking about earlier. We have also done a lot of work recently on remote collaboration. In the past, if you wanted to connect to Nexus, you pretty much had to be in the building. You had to be on a high-speed LAN kind of connection, evolving to the reality that not everybody's in the building anymore and not everybody's coming back anytime soon. We've done a lot of work so people can work remotely without having to come to the building, but they can actually connect into Nexus. And a lot of our time is spent on the performance and scaling. We've done a lot of work, so we're getting about a 20% performance increase. One of the things, actually, we don't even list it on here, is there's a lot of different layers of redundancy, both in terms of redundant controllers. So if one of the units has a problem, it'll switch over, everything keeps running, but also media protection. There's lots of different protection levels for media so that, the media you store in Nexus will be there when you need it, which is obviously very important. And then quickly, one on Flex. I've touched on a little bit of this, but this is the subscription piece. So it is an alternative to the CapEx model. We are still selling, as a CapEx model. You buy it, you own it, it's yours, you pay support and we'll give you the updates, that sort of stuff. But also the subscription model means you subscribe to the software on an annual basis. And then as and when you need to move it to the cloud, you can do, or you can just, run it on-prem, that's fine. So it gives that deployment flexibility and the cloud portability as we go forward. And then it does require the Nexus hardware, because one of the pieces, as I alluded to earlier, is one of the biggest things that Nexus delivers is that very predictable performance. So the Nexus VFS subscription either runs on Nexus hardware on-prem or qualified cloud deployments in the cloud. But to get that performance, we really need to know what it's running on. And as I mentioned before, it does have the portability to the cloud, and the subscriptions always include access to the latest and greatest features and Avid support services. So they're always a supported environment. And then just to touch on again, the deployment flexibility. So it can be fully on premises with better subscription. We've been doing the cloud thing for a few years, and that's always been a subscription, but bringing the benefits of subscription to on-prem is quite innovative. And then in the cloud, there's two choices. It can either be the edit on demand service, which is a fully SaaS service. Customers, basically can call up and say, I want an editorial environment. We determine how much storage you want, how many media composer seats you want. We do the remote PC over IP, and then file acceleration to move the media in and out. The customer needs no infrastructure on premises. You connect to those cloud-based media composers and you're off and running, and you can be off and running within 24 hours, which, is much faster, and actually less than that in a number of hours. So it's much faster than any normal production environment. And then for more complicated, more complex workflows, we have a full, bring your own cloud with the cloud practice where we, in a very much sort of a consultative way, we'll show you how to deploy Nexus and various parts of the Avid workflow into the cloud to do the, as I said, the more feature-rich workflows. And then actually to wrap it up, so Nexus is built around collaboration, but we fully know that everybody's business is changing. So we're making a platform that can adapt as people change. So the VFS is very flexible. File system can be deployed on-prem or in the cloud. The F-Series hardware, fully compatible with what we've done in the past in Nexus, and faster. So that's a good thing. Flex subscription to make it more flexible again, and on-prem in the cloud, whichever way you want to deploy it.
I do have a couple of questions that I didn't have before.
Good.
So can the new Avid F-Series, the physical on-prem storage, kind of hybridize into the cloud?
Yes, and yes, we can do that. So and actually, that's how we see things going for a long time, because for the very high performance workflows, you need on-prem storage. The cloud can do it, but the highest performance gets a little tricky. So in effect, you have a file system on-prem in the Nexus that you got on-prem. There's a different file system. It's still Nexus, which you would connect together with some, synchronization or movement tools. We're going to integrate those into the file system over time. But yes, we certainly do it. It's not actually one file system spread across those two. For redundancy reasons, it's actually better to be able to keep them separate. So you've either got, you have the cloud instance and the on-prem, but connect them together.
Now, with regards to the new Avid F-Series and the VFS cloud, what do you think sets this new Avid NEXIS cloud storage apart from the other cloud storages out there?
Really, it's our focus on the media workflows. There's obviously a lot of different clouds. There's hundreds, thousands of them now, but they're not all enabled for the kind of collaboration that people do, or even tuned for sort of the performance that we do. And as much as I say the cloud, the very high performance finishing kind of workflows you got to do on-prem. Everything else, you can do in the cloud, but not just any storage will do, because while you're doing an editing kind of workflow, the responsiveness is critical. If it's, just a few frames of delay, it just gets very annoying for the editor, but it's partly because they can't tell where they're at. We've worked, we deploy in Microsoft Azure cloud today. We spend quite a lot of time optimizing that and making sure that the performance is the same as we do on-prem. We actually, slightly partly to persuade ourselves, we did a sort of a blind test, if you will, with some customers a couple of years ago, where we had people edit on-prem. Obviously you're sitting in front of a media composer. The storage was on-prem the first day. We're like, how's the performance? How's everything? It's good. Okay, tomorrow we're going to make a few tweaks. Tell me what you think tomorrow. What we didn't tell them was the next day it was running in the cloud. And we're like, so how does it work? And they're like, yeah, it's fine, the same as yesterday. Because it's all about the latency and the performance. And it's sort of hard to show it because there's not a physical thing you can show someone, but that is what our customer base expects. You hit, JKL, you hit spacebar, you want it to play, you need to stop when when you're positioning the cursor and what have you. So that's the essence. Maybe Kevin, I don't know if you want to jump in as well.
You described it very well. I mean, our customers working with Media Composer, in fact, with any editing system connected to Avid NEXIS, and it can be other third-party systems, but the responsiveness, I mean, the creative people and the editors who are working on the editing systems every single day, they've got this acute awareness of reaction time. So when you press play, it has to play instantaneously. It can't pause and then play. So, and they pick it up, they can almost, it's almost instinctive in them now that, if they feel that this is not as responsive as it should be, then something has changed. So this blind test that Ed is referring to is quite an interesting way to kind of gauge, just how well our performance tuning and integration is with cloud as well as on-prem.
Now, I noticed that the Avid VFS and the F-Series is not solely dedicated to editing with Avid. I see that the Adobe Premiere Pro, Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve, these are all well suited for the cloud storage and the on-prem storage that Avid NEXIS is offering.
So obviously most of the testing we do is Media Composer. That is the sort of the sweet spot. We certainly recognize there's a lot of the world using Premiere, and we do a lot of work. We have a number of workstations. We do performance testing against Media Composer, Premiere, FCP, Edius, Blackmagic, every single release. And some of those vendors, we've worked with over the years to say, if you change the way you do this, the performance will be better. And some of those vendors have actually made changes to work better with Nexus. And, the reality is everybody's workflow has so many different tools for, different stages of the workflow. We absolutely recognize that. And, as I say, we spend a lot of time performance tuning, checking, at times we get reports from users saying, hey, this other application isn't working well with Nexus, and we'll work with the vendor to figure out, is it our problem, is it their problem? We are committed to doing that. We did a lot of work a couple of years ago around the very high bandwidth sort of OpenEXR, finishing VFX kind of workflows, on non-Avid tools, but the customer wanted to be able to connect those to Nexus and not have to move the media, because otherwise you've got to move the media somewhere else, which takes a lot of time. And actually, that was one of the points I made way at the beginning. Putting the media in one place and leaving it there, is a kind of a core tenet to the workflow. So yes, we spend a lot of time with that. We're definitely open storage. The history chart I showed had Unity back in 1999. In those days, it was Avid storage for Avid Media Composer, not much else. But we're 20 years down the road from there. So yeah, it's definitely open storage for lots of different tools.
So would you like to give our Creative Cow audience an example of a workflow that would flow very well, that would be enhanced by the newest Avid storage system?
Sure. It's hard to be too specific, but it's basically any editorial kind of workflow, we're 20% faster, which means, if you had, I can't do the math in my head, if you had 5 editors connected to storage and that was all the bandwidth you had in the past, well, now you've got another seat. You didn't have to buy any more storage. It's all about delivering more of the, reliable streams. And as Kevin said, with no lag, when you want to play, it really is just about being able to turn those projects around quite faster with a higher quality. So Nexus is equally applicable for post or broadcast. We're in house of worship, we're in corporate environments, we have government customers, but sort of the sweet spot is I've got the material that I'm doing the active edit on, or I'm doing the prep to get it into that stage. So, assistant editors, production assistants, creating bins, prepping projects, getting the media into the right places, but actually doing that edit. So that, lots of different kind of shows, but, sort of the production environment writ large, all the TV production, streaming services.
Nexus is a storage infrastructure, and it's there to support any kind of media workflow. So whether it's audio, whether it's video post at high resolutions, maybe for a smaller number of users, all the way to, say, broadcast news, where you may have hundreds of people connected to the system. So the Nexus system has been designed to be extremely versatile in terms of how it's deployed. And so we can deploy systems that have very, very high performance video post-production, 4K and higher, all the way through large configurations for broadcasters who need lots of connections, maybe not such high resolutions, but they're looking for scalability in terms of user connections. And I think just that openness that Ed referred to a moment ago in terms of supporting a whole variety of different third-party applications and tools. So if you take broadcast news from ingest to edit to delivery, Nexus is kind of the core to that whole workflow. And same for post. If you look at post, you still have to get the content in, it needs editing, and it needs delivering, and often delivering in different formats and flavors. So we have to have a very, very flexible storage infrastructure that scales from small to very, very large, and also that goes along with that, for organizational broadcasters and folks that have big systems. They need the reliability, and they need the not only the hardware to have lots of redundancy in it, but also the software to be redundant as well, or to have redundancy characteristics. So there's a lot in Nexus that accommodates a whole range of different workflows.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Kevin, so much for coming here today and explaining to the Creative Cow audience the latest updates to the Avid NEXIS Storage. We're excited to see what the future holds. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. Thanks.